I'm Kate Tojeiro. I'm an executive performance coach. So I work with senior leaders in business, Fortune 500 companies, FTSE 250s, enabling people to realise their potential. That might be individually, it might be collectively as an organisation. I've recently published a book last summer, The Art of Possible, which is about realising your potential. I'm also a mum. I'm fascinated by neuroscience, psychology, what makes some people achieve and some people not. I also do leadership and management development programs. And the other side to that is working within sport as well, or with people that work within sport, or maybe making that transition from sport into other areas of life. In relation to the media, I've done work in television, in the press, in the radio, where people ask me to comment on realising potential, achievement, success in business, and they'll ask my view and opinion. I often do motivational speeches talking about inspiring people that I've worked with and using the experience that I've gained with the people that I work with. And that's within businesses and at conferences and sort of public environments and also at schools and colleges. My background, I trained in retail with Marks & Spencer on their management training programme, which was an amazing experience. So I worked in retail for a number of years, great commercial, operational grounding. I then was a headhunter for a number of years, had an extraordinary experience meeting people like Sergey Brin and Larry Page, who set up Google when the company was still servers in a garage. And then I met an executive coach at a dinner party, and I said to her, well, what's one of those? And she told me, and that was 12 years ago. So I retrained 12 years ago, set my business up 10 years ago and haven't looked back. I absolutely love it. As an executive coach, I work with people in business, so all of my clients are business leaders or in business in some shape or form. And coaching, executive coaching, is around enabling people to realise their potential. So I don't do things for people, I don't advise, I don't make suggestions, but it's not me that's doing it. So it's enabling an individual to find what is most powerful for them, finding out who they are, and their drivers, those key drivers that will enable them to reach their potential, and bolstering things like self-belief that can sometimes stop us in our path. I think my ethos is around enabling people to really nurture their self-belief. And I think sometimes self-belief's a bit like a candle in a breeze, and sometimes you really have to nurture it, because belief can be the difference between really achieving something and not. So when I wrote the book, and in recent work I've done, I met with a neuroscientist, and one of the things that we can do in order to achieve our potential is get comfortable with discomfort. So when we put ourselves in a scenario where we are uncomfortable, but we feel comfortable enough with it that we can still move forward and we can still progress. So it might be as simple as listening to a different radio station in the morning, or listening to music that you wouldn't ordinarily, reading a different paper, choosing a different newsfeed, because your brain will have to work harder in order to process the information. And when your brain works harder, you create new neural pathways and you grow your ability to make judgments and make decisions, particularly when it's hard, because it's when we feel uncomfortable, when it's hard, that it's more difficult. Self-doubt and fear is a huge one. And everybody suffers from that, whoever they are. And it's how we deal with it enables us to move forward. The more prepared you are and the more rehearsed you are, the more confident you feel. Because sometimes when we feel fear, it's not necessarily about the action itself, it's what comes afterwards. So, for example, when someone's maybe preparing for a presentation and worried about it, it's not necessarily the presentation, it's the reaction of the audience. You can do nothing about the reaction of the audience, but you can prepare and rehearse. Often, one of the tactics around conquering self-doubt and thereby bolstering your self-belief is being as prepared as you can with the things that are within your control. The motorbike trip that I did a trip in the Pyrenees. To give you a bit of backstory, I was watching The Long Way Round, which is Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman going 20,000 miles around the world, long way round, 3 continents, in about 3 months. And I thought I'd like to do that. I thought it would be very easy. It was actually the hardest thing I have ever done, physically, mentally and emotionally. And a lot of the preparation that I had was, initially it was learning how to ride a motorbike. So I had to do a lot of training. The first bit of training I did, I went to a competition where you basically do as many laps as you can, where there's grass, there's water, there's sand, there's steep slopes either way, lots of trees, lots of woods. And the person who does as many laps in an hour is the winner. I didn't actually finish the warm-up lap and I fell off 30 times in an hour. So I had quite a long way to go in terms of my training. But the whole 9 months before the trip was constant practice and constant reinforcing of my self-belief, which, boy, it wavered big time. And sometimes I got that from within and sometimes I almost borrowed it from other people, which is the same with overriding the fear, because I was scared many times. But I was also exhilarated many times and the adrenaline was amazing. So I think the key thing was really allowing that self-belief to enable me to do it. So in order to realise your potential, whatever it is that you want to do, you've got that goal or you've got that target, or it might just be yours at the moment and you might have it almost hidden somewhere and you haven't spoken to anybody about it. Write it. If you haven't spoken to anyone about it, write it down. And do something today that will take you nearer to it, whatever that thing is. You know, it's something positive, but maybe something that has been in the back of your mind. Maybe it feels like you forever. You know, there's someone you know or someone you know that knows someone you know that would be really helpful in terms of where you want to go. Pick up the phone, or if that's too scary, send them an email, send them a text, but do something. Do something that will take you forward. When I'm working with my clients, if they've got something big ahead, which might be an acquisition of a new company or a purchase or a merger, or it might be downsize, or it might be a business is growing. Again, it's thinking about what's ahead, where are you going, and then breaking it down into those tiny steps, but thinking about you within it and your influence. And I think one of those things I always work with people on is, celebrating those things that you do, those things that you do really well, because sometimes we tend to dismiss those. And I know I work with a lot of people that tend to say, well, everybody can do that. No, everybody can't do that. So actually realising those things that you do well, which might be leading a team, or it might be supporting people when it's hard, or it might be putting a strategy in place to achieve something. But actually knowing what your strengths are and really leaning into those when it's hard is really important. And I think the other thing that's critical is understanding what success means for you. Everybody has very different definitions of success, and sometimes when we're wanting to realise our potential, the more we understand what our own personal definition of success is, it will be so much easier to get there rather than someone else's definition of success. And I've worked with some very senior people that have been working with other people's definitions of success, and then when we shift it around to their own definition of success, all of a sudden things start getting unlocked all the way through. And by that, it might be that your driver is money and is cars or whatever, and that's brilliant, and that's what you work towards. But it might also be excellence. It might be doing the best job that you can. It might be leaving a legacy. It might be building a business that not only does things commercially, but also does things to communities or on a global scale. So whatever it is that success means to you, and it's a very individual thing, but if you can ask yourself that question, not what your family thinks is success, or your friends, or your boss, or your teachers, but your own definition.